Hello, I'm Lucia La Rezza, and you're listening to XVGM Radio.
Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 64, Classics versus Covers with Lucia La Rezza.
I'm very excited today because we are bringing in a musician. And normally, we've been bringing in a lot of like rock bands, metal bands, hard rock bands. You know, we had Lame Genie, we had Super Thrash Brothers, and they're great and all, but we wanted to diversify. And we found somebody actually through mutual conversation, that is just perfect for our show. So we wanted to bring her on. So today we have Lucia La Rezza.
Yeah.
How's that? Good? Awesome.
Good.
Awesome. I guess what we'll do is we'll let Lucia tell us a little bit about what she does. So first off, we wanted to thank you so much for being on the show. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you bring to the table in the music world.
Thank you so much, guys. So, as you said, I'm Lucia. I am a professional violinist. I record violin tracks from home for composers and arrangers from all over the world. I have a big passion for video games music. So, as you know, and as you will hear, I record a lot of video games cover in various genres, and obviously with my violin. Also, I'm starting to compose violin music for video games. So.
Oh wow,
that's awesome. Cool.
Really
So when you get something released in a video game, definitely let us know, because we could have you back on not only as a musician but as a composer of a video game soundtrack.
Absolutely, I'm working on it. So little by little, I will arrive there.
That's very cool.
Very
awesome.
Exciting. Yeah.
So the track that we brought the show in on is from Resident Evil 2, which came out on the PlayStation 1 in 1998, and that is the save room, or it's also called a secure place or just secure place. And the original composer on that one is Masami Ueda, who we'll talk about in just a bit. So we played, very similar to our Lame Genie episode, we played Lucia's version, and then we also played Masami Ueda's version, kind of back to back, so that way you can get an idea for what the two sound like head to head. I don't know, what are your thoughts on this one, Justin?
I am always kind of going to default to the classical or the strings version of a cover. There's just something about it. I don't think I've ever heard of a cover like that hasn't just worked. No matter what it is, if it's like a fight theme or a ballad or whatnot, violins, I play a bunch of instruments, but I cannot play a violin to save my life. So maybe it's the mysticism there or what it is, whatever it is, but I love the sound of the violin, and it always brings something new to a track. I mean, unless the track was already a violin track, but this wasn't.
Right.
So yeah. I really enjoyed the feel, and what what's really cool about Lucia's version is like it's from Resident Evil 2, so the the music is kind of haunting, kind of spooky, and she kept all of that in there. Like it was. All I heard was violins. Some of the other songs you'll hear, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to the instrumentation, but this was, I think, just violins, and it was so haunting and just awesome. So good job.
Thank you so much. Yes, I basically used all violin sounds to make it all scary. Also with a lot of strange effects to keep it really, like real dark.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanted to keep the same environment of the video game, basically.
I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that haunting is the perfect word for this. It sounds very dark, and it sounds very solitary as well, based on the fact that you just have those violins. Was it multiple violins kind of layered on top of one another, or was it just like one?
Yes, it was layered. A lot of violin layered.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I figured, because I was listening to it and I'm like, this sounds like more than one. It sounds like multiple. Yeah. And that's pretty common, actually. I mean, like even in like, rock bands or metal bands or anything like that, even though there may be two guitarists, they'll have like 5 or 6 layered tracks on top of it to make it sound more full and more rich. And you get that in this Resident Evil 2 save room track. So tell us a little bit about your experience with Resident Evil 2, because you picked this specific song. What drew you to this song?
I have a really nice memory about this game, because I didn't play it by myself, but I watched my uncle play it, because I was really little. I'm 27 years old, so basically I was like 5 years old in that moment, and I was so scared but so intrigued by this game, about these zombies coming, and I wanted to keep the same memory alive, to bring it to life again, because in that moment when I released this song, basically they did the remastered of the game, so I wanted to celebrate this memory of mine with the cover.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to have a ton of questions for Lucia, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment. We're going to talk first about Masami Ueda, and then we'll roll into our next track. So Masami Ueda started off working on the very first Resident Evil, doing composition and arrangement, and then followed it up with Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. They worked on a bunch of stuff, but mainly stuck with Capcom, as well as Clover Studios, working on stuff like Beautiful Joe 2, and later they ended up working for Platinum Games, doing games like Transformers Devastation, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants in Manhattan in 2016. They did a lot of implementation in the music, that's what they're credited for, but their last composing soundtrack was Resident Evil 3 Remake in 2020.
Nice.
Yeah. Justin, what do you think? Should we get into the next track?
We should move on to our first track. So, just to remind everybody, Lucia picked 5 tracks that we're going to play, and then Mike and I have picked the original in-game tracks to put them back to back. So, we are going to listen to right now from Lucia, the Tetris theme, and then we'll follow that up with the original from Tetris on the Game Boy. It came out in 1988, A-type music composed by Hirokazu Tanaka. And that, in turn, was actually an original Russian composition called Korobeniki, and the composer of that song, we don't know who did it, so enjoy.
Hey, you're back. So that version that we just heard of the Tetris theme was by Lucia. our guest of honor. And now we're going to hear Tetris on the Game Boy. This is the 1989 release. The track is called A-Type Music, and also known as Koro Beniki, and it's by Hirokazu Tanaka, and the original is unknown for the composer. All right, welcome back. That was Tetris on the Game Boy, the 1989 game, and the song was A-Type Music, also known as the original Russian song Koro Beniki, and it's the Game Boy version was composed by Hirokazu Tanaka. The version that we first heard was our guest of honor, Lucia's version of the Tetris theme, which after going from such a creepy, somber, solitary track, we go headfirst into this very bouncy, fun, original Tetris theme. And it's just I think the drums definitely kind of added something to it. Now, do you program those in yourself, or do you have somebody playing them, or are you playing them? How does that work?
Okay, basically I play violin and synthesizer. This gives me the chance to play other kinds of instruments with the MIDI keyboard. In this case, for example, I played a lot of violins, a lot of cellos, because I can change the sound of my violin to cello.
Oh, that's
and the drums and the electric guitar are played by a really, really great YouTuber called DSC Guitar, and he was really nice and gave me the privilege to take his parts and use them for my cover.
Awesome.
That's really cool. Yeah, the collaborations are awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us about your experience with the original Tetris on Game Boy, because that's the version that we played. So did you play it mostly on the Game Boy, or how often did you play it, or tell us your experience with it?
It was like a drug, basically. I was really little. Game Boy was not my first console, but one I used the most when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. And the Tetris game, like the Pokemon game, was one of the games that took maybe all my childhood, basically.
Yep, I know many people in a very, very similar situation. Just so much Tetris. It was a fun game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe too much.
Yeah, I don't even remember my first experience with Tetris. It's so weird. It's Tetris is one of those games that just gets ingrained in who you are as a gamer. Mm-hmm. So it's you know, we've all played different versions. I would say for me personally, the one that really stood out to me was Tetris DS. That was the one that I probably played the most out of all the versions. But Tetris on the Game Boy, it's so iconic, and pretty much anybody who owned a Game Boy, this is one of those games that you just had to have. You had to have it even if you didn't play it. You know, it was that iconic.
I'm pretty sure it was part of a bundle deal at some point.
Yeah, I think so. Real quick about Tanaka, who we've talked about before on the show, but I figure we'll talk about him first, and then we'll go to some interview questions. His first composition was Space Firebird in 1980, probably just doing sound effects or some little blips and bleeps for that. Wild Gunman, Donkey Kong 3, Duck Hunt, Hogan's Alley, Ice Climber. I mean, just so many. Metroid is one of the big ones. Kid Icarus, Earthbound, he did musical effects on in 1989 in the original, which was called Mother. And Super Mario Land. I mean, just like, he's so ingrained in video game music that, at least for Nintendo specifically, I probably remember him most fondly, other than Metroid, for Mario Paint, which he did in 1992. But his final game was, or at least not final, but his latest game was Super Smash Brothers for the Nintendo 3DS, where he did musical arrangement for certain tracks.
Yeah, and so this track, I don't think we've talked about it yet. It's so classic and so iconic. It's kind of like, I want to say almost like a default. If you're going to do video game music, like everybody I feel has a version of the Tetris theme. It's just so catchy and so poppy. I mean, I only ever have to hear the first few notes before it's just stuck in my head for months on end. But I really enjoyed like what you brought into it. It was spot on for what we heard on the Game Boy version. I mean, obviously it's very chippy because it's coming off of the Game Boy, but your version sounded so much like that I mean, a lot of the other ones do, but I don't know, like I just love that the sound behind it. Again, we're going back to my love of violin, so I shouldn't just repeat myself, but I just enjoyed what you did with it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really fun to listen to. It was very, very fun and bouncy, as I was saying earlier. That's the thing that I really took away from it. I mean, I was bobbing my head just listening to it, like, yeah, all right, this is Tetris. And then when the original came in, just to kind of compare the original, it it's really tough to compare such like high quality, like actual instruments to chiptunes, because you're always going to have that separation of like, these are blips and bleeps and bloops versus like actual real musical instruments. So it just kind of sounded very cold in comparison, and not as fun and not as upbeat. And so it really does take on that more Russian version from the original, the Koro Beniki, which unfortunately we don't have a composer for. But it kind of reminds me of that original version a little bit more than your version, which is just like a jazzy, fun thing that you put out.
Yeah. So let's talk about your musical background for a bit. How exactly did you get into music? When did you start playing instruments?
Nice question. My father brought me to a live concert, and I was like 7 years old, and it was a music completely opposite from the violin. It was like alternative rock music. So I had so much fun in that concert that from that moment on, I wanted to play not a violin, but an instrument, a musical instrument. Then we went to a music school, and I wanted to start with the double bass, the big one, the big violin. Yeah. So my father said, "No, you're too little. Just choose this. This is a little version of the double bass." So I started with the violin, and I never left him.
Wow,
that's really cool. It's funny that he had to kind of stop you and be like, "Whoa, hold on! You can't even reach the top there. You gotta
bigger than you.
Gotta grow up a little bit before you do that one."
Yeah, I was 7 years old, so I was like less than 1 meter high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And
Every day I'm thankful.
And then as far as the music that you're doing now, what would you say are your influences? Are there any other musicians or artists out there that influence the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. First of all, it's the composer that signed completely my life and my existence. So Nobuo Uematsu completely changed my way of thinking about music and everything. And the second big one, musician that changed my mind, is Lindsay Starling.
The
violinist. Yeah. she's my muse, basically.
You kind of saw her and you were like, oh, I want to do what she does.
Yes.
Right,
basically,
right.
yes.
That's really cool. Yeah,
But with video games,
Yeah, because she kind of, I mean, I've seen some of her stuff, and she does cover video game stuff too.
She did Zelda, Dragon Age, and Skyrim, probably.
Yep.
Right. Well, you're shooting for the stars, so that's all you need to do. You'll be right. You'll be playing headlining right there with her.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Once we can start doing like video game conventions and gatherings and stuff again, or the
I
VGM
did
Live.
Yeah. Since I started playing Final Fantasy VII on my PlayStation 1, I started to elaborate this thinking. Then I went to my first comic conventions with video games shows. I was completely stunned by the beauty of this world. And it was an idea that started from a little idea and then growth while I was growing, basically.
Yeah. That's really cool. Justin, I know, also has a shared appreciation and love of Uematsu. I do too. I love Uematsu as well.
We're
but
all fans here.
I know that Justin's I think a little bit more of a fanboy for Uematsu than I am.
Sure.
Just a wee bit, right, Justin?
I mean, if you say so.
I mean, I think there was at one point in time we were listening to Uematsu music like almost every episode for like at least 5 or 6 episodes in a row.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Good boy.
Yeah, I try not to go overboard with it because I don't want to drown our fans in Uematsu, but when you said like he changed your mind or he changed your life with the thought of like video game music, the similar thing happened with me. I grew up just enjoying a lot of classical music, a bit of rock and whatever else, and I play a lot of I play some like orchestral instruments, like clarinet and a few other things. And so when I first heard, I think, the soundtrack to Final Fantasy VII, like I had played Final Fantasy 1 and 3 in America, which was 6 everywhere else, and the music was great, but it wasn't until like 7 and 8 when the music got more orchestral that I was just like, wow, there's something else here. So I commiserate with your love of Nobuo Uematsu.
I gotta wonder.
I feel you.
I gotta wonder, like, how many similar situations that he has inspired. Because I mean, we got 2 out of 3 right here on this episode. So I mean, there's got to be like close to hundreds of thousands of millions of people.
Oh, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It's God, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So speaking of Nobuo Uematsu.
Exactly.
We are going to get into our next track. So we're going to listen to Aerith's theme from Final Fantasy VII as played by Lucia La Rezza. And then, of course, we will listen to the original by none other than Nobuo Uematsu. So let's give that a listen.
All right, that was Lucia's version of Aerith's theme for Final Fantasy VII. We're going to be listening to the original Final Fantasy VII track, which is Aerith's theme. Came out on the PlayStation 1 in 1997, and that was done by Nobuo Uematsu. All right, we are back. That was Aerith's theme that came out in 1997 for the PlayStation 1. The game, the legendary Final Fantasy VII, and the composition by Nobuo Uematsu, and of course the original composition from Lucia, which is the version that we heard first. I gotta say, I like that flourish in the beginning with the violins, and then it was different because it gave like an original kind of intro to this very classic Final Fantasy song that we've all heard millions or billions of times. And to hear it roll into this version that just sounds obviously so much more rich than what MIDI can output. It just was so well done. There's one part in particular that really kind of tugged at the heartstrings a little bit. The part right when it comes in, when it's like da 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 da, like that. That whole, when there's high highs and low lows with the song, it always grips me. And to hear it with such with actual instruments is always something that I guess the only comparison that I have is when I heard in Final Fantasy VII Remake, when I heard the original opening for it, right before the train's coming in. Oh man, I was smiling, but I was definitely tearing up. Yeah. And I think, Justin, you and I were talking about that. We were both like, did you tear up at the beginning? Yeah, I did too, man. Yeah, totally teared up. Like,
so good.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned Final Fantasy VII Remake, because that's actually something that I wanted to mention here too. So Aerith's theme, as we all know, is very somber, very heartfelt, and I think that really came through in your version, Lucia, because for the entire song, it's dripping with emotion. And then at the end, there's this, like Mike's talking about the flourish at the beginning, there's this flourish at the end where it kind of picks up and gets a little bit more upbeat before slowing down again and finally ending. And that little bit triggered this entire thing in my brain. So having played Final Fantasy VII Remake, I feel like there's a certain funness to Aerith that wasn't really there in the original. Like, she was fun, but they can get more into the characters now with the remake. Yeah. So I feel like there's this fun thing about her, and that's exactly what your little like upbeat flourish at the end felt like to me. It felt like you were adding a little bit of Final Fantasy VII Remake Aerith to Aerith's theme, whether you were or not. That's just what happened in my brain and my heart.
Basically, you told everything I wanted to achieve with this song. So great.
Success.
I'm so happy to hear it.
Absolutely. Oh, I loved this so much.
The toughest thing about this song is that anytime I have to pronounce it, I always want to say Aerith's theme, because at least here in the US, it was always Aerith, Aeris. And then there was that wave of people that were just like, no, man, it's Aerith. You're like,
well, that's what it was in Europe.
Pronounce it.
Pretty much everywhere else.
But in Italy, for example, we have another pronunciation. We call it aerith with the T, because in Italy we pronunciate the T.
Okay.
For example, so it's complicated. Every country has their problem with pronunciation.
I don't think we need to talk too much about the game itself and our experiences about it, because we did an entire episode with Justin from not my Justin
from Night of the Round.
From Night of the Round.
Yes.
Right. Well, so we did that whole episode with him.
Yeah, I mean, we got to talk a lot about it in that episode, but I don't think Lucia was in that episode. So
she was not. Yeah, we need to find out all about her her experiences with
exactly.
This is one of my first video games ever, and also the video game with what I learned more English than in my entire life, basically, because I was really, really little, and I was Italian. I am Italian. So basically, for like 8-9 years old child with another language to read this game, to see this game all completely in English, I understood half of the game at that time. But still, I will never forget the emotion of the death of Aerith, or how you want to call it.
Yeah.
And for me, it was not crying. I was happy in that moment. Because when I was little, I I didn't like the color pink, and she was always dressed with pink. So she was like pure evil. When Sephiroth comes and bam, I was like, yes.
Wow, you have a vicious streak.
Like no
That's
more
funny.
pink in my party, hooray!
Hey, I think our audience knows how Justin and I line up with this. I am, of course, Team Tifa, and Justin is, of course, Team Aerith.
This thing could bring it to another kind of big conversation, but maybe it's better to not open that black space.
Yeah, we'll open up the floodgates on that one.
But yeah, basically I was Team Tifa too, but no, I was Team Sephiroth basically.
Fair enough.
He was my first true love.
That's awesome.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you don't hear too much. Like, I know there's a big fangirl community for Final Fantasy VII, and really for just Final Fantasy in general, because the games, really connect with female audiences. But it's always interesting to hear what guy, the women, that prefer guys, or interesting guys, prefer. Because like you would think like they'd be Team Cloud, because that whole love triangle with the three, with Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, et cetera, et cetera. But then you get like Vincent in the mix too, and
yes,
I've talked to a lot of girls that are like, oh, I'm Team Vincent.
I dated a few girls that were Team Vincent.
Did you? Yeah.
There is also Team Zack eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, Team Zack. Yeah. So to hear somebody go like, oh yeah, Team Sephiroth, like the bad guy, that's like so funny.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your history with video games. I'm curious, what was the first console that you remember owning or being in your life?
My first true love, let's call it console, but I call it true love, was the PlayStation 1. And I started with PlayStation 1 and I never left Sony, ever, like my violin. PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we will see if I will take the 5 in a not so far future.
Yeah, hard to come by right now at this particular moment in time.
Right, yeah. As we're recording this, the PlayStation 5 came out a few days ago, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you would say the PlayStation is probably your favorite console as well?
Yes, absolutely. It's probably because I started with this kind of joypad and this kind of games. So basically I was more for adventure game, platform game, not so much for war game, not so much for car games. So basically for PlayStation, there was always the platform predictability. So basically Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, and so on. So when I was little, I preferred that and RPGs. Then, after a lot of time, they come out with a game called Bloodborne. So, it's basically by one of my favorite games always. It's Bloodborne because it reminds me so much how difficult it is to learn violin. So in the difficulty of that game, I see all my life. and it's for PS4, so always Sony.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I have Bloodborne. I am not very good at it. I did enjoy what I played. I have not beaten it, but it is very difficult. So you would compare learning how to play the violin with playing Bloodborne?
Yes, definitely.
That's amazing. The violin has always intimidated me. Like I play guitar, but there's no frets on a violin, and you just need to know what you're doing and where your fingers are going, as far as I can tell, and that just intimidates the heck out of me.
I mean, all of it intimidates me except for drums, because I'm a drummer. So, just all of it is just so far out of my reach. I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to stay here with the drums. I'm good. Maybe bass. I might be interested in like learning bass guitar, but that's pretty much it.
Oh, that's really nice. I played bass guitar when I was at high school. It was really, really cool.
Oh, that's cool. In like a jazz band sort of thing?
I was in a really metal power, super mega power metal band. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Right on.
Very cool. That's right up
my alley.
Yeah. So it sounds like Bloodborne is your favorite game. Do you have a favorite game series? Would you just stop at Bloodborne, or is there like a series of games that that are your favorite?
Yes, Souls-like. Basically, Dark Souls 1, 2, 3.
Oh, wow.
I have to play Demon's Souls. I will play it. And I think I will love it, the remake they did.
Right, for PS5.
I'm sure you will, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool. So how would you describe the music that you typically create for, it doesn't have to necessarily be video game music or the video game covers, but just the music in general that you typically create?
Basically, I would describe it like a hug.
Like a hug?
I know it seems strange, but it is not, because the purpose of my music always is to not let people feel alone, especially for people like us, video games fans, or like in general people that is not seen in a good way by society. So my music wants to comfort people who feels alone in this place called world.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's pretty deep too.
Yeah, I think it's the best answer to a question we've ever had.
Yeah, right.
Wow. I would say thus far, your music has accomplished its goal, especially with that last track.
We getting hugged, Justin.
We are. We're getting very hugged.
That's right.
Great.
And also to bring up something that we just talked about, we should get into our next track, because we were just talking about Bloodborne, and next up is actually a Bloodborne medley by Lucia. The medley is made up of the main theme and the Geherman theme, and then after that you'll hear the main theme, which is just called Bloodborne, the original composition. So let's listen to those.
All right, you just heard Lucia's Bloodborne melody, which is comprised of the main theme and Geherman. And now we're going to hear the original Bloodborne soundtrack song, Bloodborne, which is the main theme. And that came out on the PlayStation 4 in 2017. The composition is by Ryan Amon, Tsukasa Saito, Yuka Kitamura, Nobuyushi Suzuki, Chris Valesco, and Michael Wandmacher. All right, we are back. That was Bloodborne, the PlayStation 4 game that came out in 2017. And again, the track Bloodborne, which is also the main theme by Ryan Amon, Tsukasa Saito, Yuka Kitamura, Nobuyushi Suzuki, Chris Valesco, and Michael Wandmacher. And that was following Lucia's Bloodborne medley, which is comprised of the main theme that we just heard, as well as Geherman.
Yeah. This was so cool. So as Mike was talking about with us during the break, we played them back to back for us, and he actually had trouble discerning where hers stopped and the original began. And I think that's a major credit to you, Lucia. He's like, well, obviously it changed at some point, but where was that change?
I mean, I was digging it the entire way through, and then I was like, I heard the female vocals, and I was like, wait, was that her? And I was like, wow, she's got a good voice too. I was like, cool. And so it was like one of those, I was like, well, where did it stop? Where did it end? So it was cool. So you guys at home listening, or wherever you are, you'll of course have that separation. But for us, the whole thing melded together. And I will say the initial beginning part kind of felt a little bit Nightmare Before Christmassy. With the vibe. I was getting that vibe initially, and then when it kind of transitioned into the remainder of the song, I was like, okay. I was like, we just played Bloodborne on the Spooky Fest episode, so we just recently talked about this game, and it was one of those things where we were kind of going back and forth, and I was like, oh, do I want to play this game? Like, you know, I have not played Dark Souls. I've only seen someone briefly play Dark Souls, and I was like, oh, this game is not for me. But at the same time, like, talking to Justin, that kind of made me feel like I shouldn't play this game. But I hear this music and I'm like, oh man, the music's so good. So it's like one of those tough things where I'm like torn, and especially after hearing your medley here, I'm like, man, this music is so good in this game. I want to experience it in the game. So it's one of those things that it's kind of tough for me personally. But tell us about your experience with this one.
Basically, Bloodborne was a present of one of my biggest friends in Italy, and since when I started to play it to the end of the game, it is a Souls-like, so basically you can finish the game and do it again in a more difficult level, and G+ is called, New Game Plus. And since then I never stopped to play it, and it was just like Tetris, a complete drug, not only for the music, that is genius, also for the architecture of all the game, all the ambience, all the sounds, all the kind of bosses, all the story, because it's a really complicated story with a lot of little stories inside. It brings you to another world, making you completely forget about your problems in life in general. So it was like a big journey for me.
Very cool. Yeah, as soon as you mentioned the architecture, I remembered, like, it's everywhere. The settings and the environments in this game are honestly beautiful. I mean, some of them are horrifying, but they're so detailed. It's very immersive.
I get the vibe in this game that the difficulty, most people that I talk to about this game, the difficulty is like the only thing that they talk about. But I'm always one of those types of people that tries to look at something other than what everyone else talks about in a game. So with the music, how do you feel like when you were listening to this music and you were trying to pick specific songs to cover, what was it about these two songs that really kind of made you go, okay, these two, I gotta cover these?
The first one, the main theme, is the song that I heard for the first time at the E3 when they presented the game. Okay. And it made me have goosebumps. It was like, yes, I want to play this song. The second song I choose, it's from the ending boss. And it is like a revelation in the plot. I don't want to spoiler anything to you, so I will not take it in details. But you discover something that makes you understand all the game you played, just at the end, and you hear this song.
It's okay, I already know the spoiler. I already know I already know that Aerith dies at the end. I already know.
Jeez.
Very cool.
So tell us, when you're putting one of these medleys together or even composing something original, what is your creative process like? Like, what do you do to get into the mindset, and how does that work for you?
Basically, I first choose the songs, as I explained to you for Bloodborne. I did it for every other video game song. I choose it by heart. Then, after, I play my violin with the original song to understand more the vibe, to enter in the vibe of the game. Sometimes I also play again the game to understand more the feelings. Then I open my DAW, my program to record, and I started to create some ambience sound with my synthesizer. After, I play the main theme with my violin, and I put more and more layers of things that gives me the right vibe to continue.
Very cool. Nice.
So you talked a little bit about Lindsey Sterling earlier, but I'm curious, who would you most like to collaborate with? Either musical performers or any kind of inspirations that you have? Like, who would be your go-to to collaborate with for like a future track?
For sure, I would more likely collaborate with composers of big video games that changed my life. Like I said, Nobuo Uematsu, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
I could die the day after. I would be happy. Okay, I finished my life now. Okay. Then I would like so much to play something with the piano guys. I don't know if you know them. They are really good musicians, content creators, and arrangers on YouTube.
They're called the Piano Guys. That's their
Yeah, the
name?
piano guys.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Last but not least, I would like a lot to play with Lindsay Starling.
Of course.
Obviously.
That'd be awesome. Dual violins. It'd be like
Absolutely.
Deliverance, but like not creepy.
Oh my god, yes.
with the dueling banjos.
Exactly.
Dueling violins, yeah.
Absolutely.
Very cool. All right, so these composers for Bloodborne, I'm just going to tackle these and do like maybe 2 or 3 games that they've done. The very first composer, Ryan Amon, that's very easy to do because he's only done Assassin's Creed Unity in 2014 and Bloodborne. So nice and easy there. Tsukasa Saito started off in 1998 with Echo Knight. I believe we talked about him before because we went over these composers on the Spooky Fest episode.
Correct, yep.
So I'll pick 2 other random games. Otogi 2 Immortal Warriors in 2003. They did production department on the sound section. And let's go Murakumo Renegade Mech Pursuit in 2002. They did production department sound section on that as well, mostly doing like arrangement and, you know, a couple games they did composing on, but they seem to be mostly like as part of design and direction, so to speak, as far as music goes. The last of my 3 are Yuka Kitamura, and they started off with Armored Core 5 in 2012, and then did Dark Souls 2 in 2014 and Dark Souls 3 in 2016. So they're most likely a large part of the influence of the music that you hear with Bloodborne.
Yep. And then I have Nobuyoshi Suzuki, did sound design for this game for Bloodborne, and then did music composition in Dark Souls 3, and then jumped over to Nintendo to do character and sound design in Super Mario Odyssey in 2017, and then most recently sound design on Ring Fit Adventure in 2019. Chris Velasco started out, he's got the most credits here. I think I made mention of that last time. Started out doing additional music on Van Helsing in 2004, and then Clive Barker's Jericho in 2007 they did music on. StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty, I love that game, they did additional music.
Nice.
And all the way up to 2020 they did music direction for a game called Carrion. And then finally, Michael Wandmacher started out with doing scary music in I Was an Atomic Mutant in 2003, did the original score in Madagascar in 2005, and as well as Over the Hedge in 2006. In 2010, they did the music for Singularity, and their most recent composition credit is for Bloodborne.
Very cool. I think there's just too much spooky though. We gotta tune it down a little bit.
Yep, so that I think leads us into our next track, or set of tracks rather. This is going to be Lucia's Pokemon medley. So this is going to be the intro, the Pokemon Center theme, the gym battle theme, and Lavender Town. And then we're going to follow that up with the intro theme from the original Pokemon Red and Blue in 1998.
right, you just heard Lucia's medley from Pokemon, and that was the intro, the Poke Center theme, the Gym Battle theme, and Lavender Town theme. We're going to play the original next, but we're only going to be focusing on intro 1 and 2 from Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Came out on the Game Boy in 1998 with a soundtrack by Junichi Matsuda. All right, we are back, and that was Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Came out on the Game Boy in 1998. That was the intro 1 and 2 by Junichi Masuda. That followed the previous track, which was the Pokemon medley by our guest of honor, Lucia. And that was the intro, the Poke Center theme, Gym Battle theme, and Lavender Town theme. I gotta say, I am not really a big Pokemon guy much at all. I did play the original, like the very first one, and I think I preferred Yellow just because I really liked Pikachu. I was like, whatever, I like Yellow. That's cool. But I first played Red, I think, and my brother got Blue. So we kind of, my brother's like a super big Pokemon guy, but I feel like it's one of those things, like generationally wise, I just miss because I'm older. I'm 37, so. But regarding this medley, it was super fun. Like, it was awesome. I loved the medley. I heard the original music, time and time again playing the original, but man, that medley just really uplifted my spirits for not the entire episode, but like coming from Bloodborne and Aerith's theme, it's more somber. Those are two very somber tracks, very dark tracks. So this whole episode has been like a giant emotional wave for me because it's been like sad and then happy and then sad and sad and then happy. So yeah. But I liked what you did with medleys. Are always tough because it's like one of those things with transitions where it's tough to go from one track to another. And even though there were the transitions towards the end, they weren't seamless in the sense that I recognized when a song stopped, which is good in a way. It didn't meld together, like mush together like one big track. Like you knew when you heard one part end, you knew the next that was coming right from the first couple notes. So I think you did a good job with transitioning those tracks.
So for one, I love that you kept the Game Freak's logo sound in there at the beginning. Like that's not even something that's on the soundtrack, which is just so cool. Yeah, no, for serious though. Like I heard that and like I can just see the Game Freak's logo with the stars and everything else coming down, and I thought that was really cool. I really enjoyed the backing rock music that you had in there, especially in the opening and towards the end. I thought it was just really perfect for what you were doing with it. It gives the track like a real driving feeling, especially in that intro. And then we like slide into that Pokemon Center, and I just, it felt really cool, that transition from the intro to the Pokemon Center, because for whatever reason in my mind, like I said slide, I mean slide, like you're a kid with your Pokeballs and like, I need to heal my Pokemon, so I'm sliding into the Pokemon Center and throwing them at Nurse Joy over the counter and pleading with her to save my life.
Fix my Pokemon, lady.
Yeah. The Pokemon Center theme itself is actually a really short loop, and what you did with it, like you added these trills and these flourishes. There was no way I could play the original Pokemon theme against yours because you blew it out of the water. Like, absolutely. What you did with that part of the track was just amazing. And then from there you kind of like go right into the gym battle theme, which I love the gym battle theme from the original game. We've played it on the show before in one of our previous episodes. The rock metal behind that you had in the beginning kind of comes back for this, and it's a battle theme, so it's perfect. It's energetic. It's so upbeat. And then you kept the tempo, which I thought was really cool, going from that into the Lavender Town theme, which is usually a really slow, creepy song. I get that there's a lot of people that enjoy Lavender Town, some unironically, some ironically for whatever reason. I've always found it to be like a weird, dissonant track, but you took that, and by keeping the tempo and doing what you did, it's still creepy, but it's so much more listenable in your version. Like, I enjoy what I'm hearing, whereas with the original, there's just these dissonant pieces that make it creepy, but I don't enjoy it as much. So I really like what you did here.
Thank you so much.
I can't remember. Is Lavender Town late in the game? Because I really just don't remember that
I think
at all.
Middle.
Yeah, it's near to the end of the game, basically.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it is near the end. Okay. But, oh, man.
I would like to let you know that here the guitar part and the drums part are also by DSC Guitar, the guitarist that gave me the tracks for Tetris Team as well. So I want to point it. Also, I would like to thank you guys, because you basically say everything of what I want to express with my songs. Everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yes.
I'm glad we're I'm glad we're hitting the right notes here, so to speak.
Yeah.
So what was your experience with Pokemon back in the day? I mean, I kind of talked about how I'm kind of meh about it, and I know Justin's a fan of the initial generation, and I think he's played like some of the other ones. But what was your experience with Pokemon?
My experience, I started to play like when I was 12 years old, probably. I had my first Game Boy Color, and my first Pokemon game was Pokemon Yellow in Japanese. So basically, I didn't understand anything of the game, but I continued to play for intuition. So I saw, okay, so if I search for this, okay, I attack with this, that's okay. Basically, it was mad. First experience. Then I had my Pokemon Gold, the one with the second generation, and I understood everything because it was in Italian, fortunately.
Oh, cool.
So I continued then with the 3DS. So basically I arrived to Pokemon X. So I don't remember what number of generation is, but it's like really far, like the 70th of 8th generation probably.
Oh yeah, probably like what, 3DS I think it came out on, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Pokemon X and Y, that was 2013. I think that is 6th generation.
So Justin, what is your favorite Pokemon? Like of the original, like who's your favorite?
I'm a simple man. I am a Charmander line.
Oh.
I don't know if Charmander's my favorite or Charizard, but I like the fire types.
Okay. And what about you, Lucia?
Too. It's the same.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
I was a big fan of, I mean, like, I also watched the cartoon because, again, my brother was, like, super into it. So I used to watch the cartoon quite a bit. I really liked, is it Shizor? Is that one?
Sizor?
Sizer? Yeah.
The green one.
Yeah, he looked cool. Like, he had, like, mantis arms or whatever.
Yeah.
With blades. He was always my favorite. And, of course, Pikachu. I mean, who doesn't love Pikachu?
Ariel doesn't like Pikachu.
I agree.
What? Yeah. That is divorce worthy.
No, what are you talking about? I mean, but the way she explains it anyway, he's on all the merchandise. He's so in your face, like, because he is the most popular Pokemon, she's sick of him.
I can understand that, I guess. I guess I'm on board with that. All right, you don't have to divorce her. So it's okay.
Jesus. So, what is one message that you would like to give to any of your fans that are listening?
I think we talked about earlier. I would like to say it again. This is a really, really important thing, especially in these times. I would like to say that people, you are not alone. You will have always someone who understands you perfectly. That's my message.
Yeah.
To the space.
That's very fitting, and I think it's needed for these crazy times that we live in the year 2020, where we can all look back on this, hopefully maybe next year or the year after or who knows when, and realize how crazy things were and how uplifting that sort of a message is. So well said.
Just keep going.
Yeah, that's all we can do. As we speak currently, COVID-19 numbers, at least in the U.S., ransacking the country, where to the point where Justin and I are now recording remotely so that we can help continue fighting the good fight of social distancing, wearing masks, etc. So we hope everyone is safe and healthy during this crazy time. But yeah, let's not bring down the mood with that. Let's move on to our next question. Where have you performed your music, and what would you say are your favorite or least favorite venues? I know we can't all perform in public right now, but we could at least look on the past and go, oh yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
I have performed in a lot of places, like more than 100 probably.
Oh, wow.
And yes, I work as a live performance since 2015, so basically it's a lot of time, a lot of performances, but my favorite absolutely was Luca Comics and Games. That is the biggest Comic-Con in Italy. It was 2018 and I played on the main stage in front of 3,000 people. It was, wow, amazing.
That's incredible. That must have been some rush.
After I played, I get down from the stage and I was crying of happiness. I never did it in my life. I did it in that moment. It was stunning.
Oh,
really.
For sure. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So I believe we are coming to a close with our episode. So we have, I think, a few more questions that we want to get answered, which we'll do in just a minute. But let's move on to our next pick. What do we have coming up, Justin?
Yeah, so we're going to close this out with some Death Stranding music. We're going to listen to Lucia's version of BB's theme, and then we're going to listen to the original on the PS4. Death Stranding came out in 2019, so it's still called BB's theme, and it was composed by Ludwig Forsell.
All right, that was Lucia's BB's theme from Death Stranding. That's her version. This is the original Death Stranding from the PlayStation 4 in 2019. The track is BB's theme, and it's by Ludwig Forsell and Jenny Plant, who did vocals.
See the sunset, the day is ending. Let that yawn out. There's no pretending. I will hold you.
All right, you just heard Death Stranding, the PlayStation 4 track, and that came out in 2019. The track name was BB's Theme, and it's by Ludwig Forsell, and the singer on that was Jenny Plant. Right before that, we heard Lucia's take on BB's Theme from Death Stranding. I gotta say, this is tough, because I really liked elements from both, and to me, it almost felt like they were a remix of the track that you might hear like in the game. If Lucia's version was in game, let's just say, for example, then the Death Stranding version sounded like a end credits theme, almost.
Almost like a credit roll. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially with the vocals and, the child in the background, like the baby kind of making some baby noises. So it really reminded me of more something that you would hear at the end. And I haven't played Death Stranding, so I don't know. Maybe that is the end track, but I don't know. What do you think about this one, Justin?
So I kind of agree, although I think I preferred Lucia's version. Aside from the violin stuff that I've been talking about this whole time, it doesn't have the creepy baby sounds, and I find the baby sounds in the original version to be really unnerving, just weirdly creepy. I did like how the main melody, obviously the vocals from the original, are the focus of the violin part in the cover, but I think without having played the game or having heard the song very much, aside from just now, the words, the lyrics, they didn't really come through to me, even like whether or not those vocals, but like I could hear them, but they didn't really resonate with me. But the playing that melody on the violin, to me, felt more soulful than the person singing. And that's not giving Jenny Plant any guff. I think she has a really great voice, and I think she did a really good job, but the violin just shone through more in my mind.
I actually 100% agree with you on that. Like, and again, because I don't have any experience with Death Stranding, I can't really comment on it, but like, I agree that the version that Lucia is bringing us here, it felt more human. And that's weird when you compare the two, because in one, you've got, child voices, baby voices, you've got a woman singing, and, in the other, there's completely absent vocals. It's just musical instruments. So that says a lot to the testimony of this song. Definitely, out of all of the tracks that we've played, this one, like 100%, I prefer Lucia's version over the original.
Wow, thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
So we haven't played Death Stranding before. Have you played this game?
I started to play 2 weeks ago. I have moments in what I like it a lot. I have moments that it's not taking me so much, but a lot of friends say to me that it's only the start that gives you this sensation. Basically, I wanted to play this soundtrack in this moment because the meaning and the environment of the game is the same. We have almost the same, obviously not the same. We have with lockdown in all the places, in pandemic in all the places, because there is a lot of cities far away one and another, and a few people that has to be closed in their houses, and a few delivery men, let's call them like that, that brings food necessities and packagings from a big city to another, and you are one of the delivery men, basically. So this song represents a lot the feeling of being in prison, people that have to be closed in their houses, people that doesn't know if having any hope about the future.
Wow,
that's cool. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. That lines up with your message from earlier too, so that's really cool.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So
it's all connected.
Yeah. Real quick, the composer Ludwig Forsell did a lot of work with Metal Gear Solid 5, Ground Zeroes, and The Phantom Pain, where they worked on composition as well as voice on The Phantom Pain. Lollipop Chainsaw was the first game that they worked on, most likely the non-licensed tracks like, Mr. Sandman and stuff like that. So they didn't do that. They did the non-licensed
the original stuff, yeah.
Yeah, the original stuff. And then Death Stranding is their final credit. They're credited as audio director.
Oh.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And then Jenny Plant, who did the vocals in this track, did vocals for other tracks in Death Stranding, and also for a track in Ghost of Tsushima. She did vocals on Way of the Ghost.
Cool.
That's it. Yeah. So, Lucia, what is, out of all the songs that you have here and that you've performed, do you have a favorite? Is there one that you're like, I always want to play this song at any gig?
Yes, my favorite is always, and I think will always be Skyrim.
Okay.
Very cool.
The soundtrack of that game is maybe the best. Almost the best, because there is Nobuo before.
Right.
What's the most trouble that you've ever gotten into in general?
For sure, Sephiroth team. Sephiroth team from Final Fantasy VII. It's one of the most difficult in video games.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
And then our final question of the night. What is the best advice that you've ever been given that you'd like to share with the rest of the world?
I received this piece of advice when I was 18 years old, and I always remembered it. It is recognize your weaknesses and make them your strength. It was like really inspiring because I understood that some of the most horrible weaknesses I have revealed to be some of the most important things that a person can have. Like, for example, I have an Italian accent. That's a stupid thing. I've always thought that in English, having an Italian accent, it's horrible. Then I came to UK, because now I live in UK. And for everyone, it's the more beautiful accent ever. So I'm like, oh, okay.
That's kind of the way it goes.
Wrong.
Yeah,
That's kind of always the way it is. Like if you go to a foreign country, everyone's like, "Oh my God, your accent is so gorgeous," and I'm like, "Really? Like I'm from Connecticut, lady. Like for real? Like no, we can't pronounce our consonants. Like our T's and our R's, and like forget it. They're just out the window."
Yeah. But yeah, this was a stupid example, but you can adopt this piece of advice.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. Good words to end on. So, Justin, what we usually do at the end of the show is we pick our favorite tracks.
Yeah.
And in this circumstance, we're going to pick our favorite Lucia track, and we're also going to pick our favorite original. And they don't have to necessarily both be the same. So we're going to start with our guest of honor, Lucia. What was your favorite song of the ones that we've played of your own?
Absolutely, Tetris Team. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And how about for the original versions?
I think Bloodborne.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Justin?
Fair enough. So I think my favorite of Lucia's tracks is her version of Aerith's theme. Like I said, I really like what you did at the end there. It felt so much more than the original. It felt like you added something to the original piece, which was great. And then I think my favorite original is actually going to be the Bloodborne theme as well. That one was just, it was really cool. And having played the game a handful of times, I'm reminded that it has such fantastic music.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Pokemon medley for Lucia's. That was just so much fun to hear her versions of the different Pokemon tracks that I've, most of which I remember, but some of which I didn't. And for the original, I got to go with Aerith's theme from Final Fantasy VII.
Fair enough.
So now's the time in the show when we like to make sure that our guests tell everybody what they're working on in the future, where you can find them, and make sure that they get the word out. So, Lucia, thanks so much for being on the show. And please tell us where everyone can find you on the web.
Thank you so much, guys. So, I am on YouTube as Lucia La Rezza, on Instagram as Lucia La Rezza, always as Lucia La Rezza, basically. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, sometimes, even if I hate it. That's right. Twitter, and I think that's it. Yes. I will have some live concerts if pandemic will be gone. I hope so. Finger crossed. On April, I will be in Liverpool at the Anime and Video Games Con.
Oh, nice.
And on June, I will be in Cardiff at the Anime and Video Games Con. So let's hope that everything will be fine.
Yeah,
Very
best of
cool.
luck. I really hope everything, comes together to allow that to happen. The sooner we can all get out, the sooner the
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, thank you so much for Lucia La Rezza for being on our show. And we will, of course, provide links to everything that she covered and more on our show notes. So definitely make sure that you check those out.
Yes.
Thank you so much, guys.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was rad.
So before we get into our ending, I do want to just give a big shout out. So we are now post Extra Life. Our team made well over our goal. We did really well, and I had 4 donators that actually donated at a $50 donation, and they get and deserve a shout out on this show. So
Awesome.
I just want to say thank you to Scott McElhone. Thank you to Marcus Stewart. Thank you to Nicholas Cardenas Rada, as well as my old college roommate, Scott Cummings. You guys are awesome for donating to Children's Miracle Network hospitals, and it was quite a time. I'll also say I had 2 challenges put before me. Marcus challenged me to get 2 crowns in Fall Guys. I did not succeed. I did get 1 crown, though. So that's something.
Nice.
And then Scott challenged me to, in Worms WMD, to defeat everyone with like a prod or the baseball bat. And I did not succeed at that either. I tried it a couple times, and I just...
That's tough to do.
No, it is. I got wiped all the
Yeah.
time.
Very cool.
So we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Alex Messenger, Cam Worma, Chris Hart, Dan Lawton, Jordan and Anson Davis, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Scott McElhone, Chris Myers, Peter Panda, the Autistic Gamer 89, Bedroth, Brad Austin, Chris Murray, Jeremy Rutz, Llama Adam, Marcus Stewart, Matt Hanola, Muddle Madness, Nick Davis, and Ryan McPherson.
If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/xvgmradio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you at the end of the show and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
If you've liked what you've heard, please consider giving us a review on iTunes.
You can join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at facebook.com/groups/xvgmradio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks, or just talking about the podcast itself.
You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle on both of those sites is @xvgmradio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links will be in the show notes.
Justin, in 2 weeks, it's that time of year again. What are we
Already?
doing?
Oh my God. So in 2 weeks, we are going to rein in the cold times with our second Winter Tracks episode. I think we did, what was that, last year? Or was it 2 years ago? I've lost track.
Last year? I know, it feels like an eternity since last Christmas, but yes, last Christmas time of year, we did Winter Tracks 1, and this time we're doing Winter Tracks 2, Ice Electric Boogaloo.
There we go. Nice. If you want to remind yourself about the first Winter Tracks, it was episode 41. You can go back and listen to that and get ready for the sequel.
Yes, the Squeakquel.
The Squeakquel, yes.
Yeah, and we'll be doing another gift exchange like we did last year. We'll be doing it remotely, though, so I have already received in one of Justin's gifts, and it's a doozy, so good times. I'm excited to do a little gift exchanging with my buddy.
Awesome. Well,
all right.
I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. So in 2 weeks, we'll see you for Winter Tracks 2. This is Mike.
And Justin.
Signing off for XVGM Radio.
It was stunning.
Oh,
really.
for sure. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't even think I've gone to the bathroom in 100 different places, let alone let alone played in 100 different places. Very cool.